that's why it's so
pretty cash.
Yeah.
Okay, Nick Mace, welcome to the Regenerative Journey, and welcome to your well, not just your home. We're on your. Is this your veranda, your patio, your deck? What do you call it?
Yeah, this is probably the prime spot of the house to get a good look out what the day's going to bring and see what we're in store for.
Well, we saw the sun come up this morning. It was magnificent. We're looking over some bit of your garden, the nearly Olympic size trampoline, which I was a bit tempted to jump on this morning, but that would have ended in tears. And your pool. Do you use the pool?
Yep, I last winter I did a lot of Wim Hofing in there, but I think I might have spooked myself for this winter.
Oh, Wim's going to be available in season 5. If anyone doesn't know about Wim Hof, Google him. He's a machine, the Iceman. He's fantastic. And we've got birds. That bird, that willy, no, it's not a willy wagtail. What is that one? It's beautiful.
He's a ripper, yeah.
Anyway, he's trying to get in.
Cleaning up a few spiders for me.
That's what we love.
Yeah.
Nick, mate, welcome to the show. We have had a previous attempt to catch up, which we had to cancel for a number of reasons, and lovely to be here with you at Wilga Park, just sort of, I guess, your southwest of Walgett. Tell me what's special about here? What we're looking at, sitting here in the house you grew up in?
Yeah, well, it's a beautiful part of the world out here. It's we've been here my whole life and grown up in the area, and a lot of good memories. It's like where Wilga Park is. It's in amongst the sort of black soil plains, but we're nestled on a little red ridge here, and you get the best of both worlds with that. We've got black country either side and a bit of a red ridge where the house is, and get a bit of a mix of country.
We had excuse me, I'll try and not clear my throat all the way through. We had a lovely little trip around this morning. You've got some cropping on the eastern side of the road, more grazing. There he is. What did you just say then, Nick? He's not going away. Grazing sort of more on the western side. It was lovely to look around.
Yeah, well, seeing it at its best too at the moment. We've had a really nice season. Just raining when on cue at the moment. And
you had a couple of tough years before that, like most of Eastern Australia or most of Australia.
Yeah, it's been a dry few years. On and off for a while prior to the last 2 years.
And where it is looking magnificent. I haven't been, actually, worth a note, back in 1998, I think it was 1998, when I'd only just sort of probably been home at Tanamino for a year. We had a pretty extended dry period, and we adjusted cattle at Walgett, at a fellow called Paul Wilson. He was just at a southeast of Walgett. And it was beside some country that your father Rod was. I can't remember whether he leased it or anyway, I remember your father very well. He met us in the yards and we offloaded them, and then they went sort of just north into Paul's place.
Yeah, it's a small world, isn't it, Charlie?
Crazy.
Yeah.
I can't remember whether I met you there or not. Whether you little.
I might have been running around there somewhere, I would say.
You didn't get in the way or get run over by the cattle or the cows, so that was probably a good thing. So we had them there, just quickly, we had them there at beautiful 600-acre paddock, mustered up to your eyeballs, plenty of tucker there, but was totally unaware of the possibility of flooding. And then we got a call probably about a month or two in, and from probably Paul saying, there's floodwaters coming, we got to do something. So what do you do? Anyway, 600-acre paddock turned into a 60-acre paddock, and we were dropping hay in via helicopter. We had to fence. Actually, your old man had some wheat on the boundary that we had to re-fence the boundary so that our cows wouldn't go into his wheat. It was a bit of a nightmare, really, but lots of lessons learnt there. And so there you go. And then here we are, 23 years later, having a chat.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So while it's sort of, I wouldn't say it's have the fondest memories of Walgett, but you know, they're they're improving.
Yeah, oh, that's good, Charlie.
Nick, so tell me more about about being here, what it means for you to look out at, you know, the landscape that you're stewarding at this point with your family.
Yeah, no, it's great to be having the opportunity to manage it and try and improve on what my parents have done over the years, and see if I can get a bit more biodiversity and a bit more ground cover and get it improved, keep it improving. Yeah, so I'm just it's special to have that opportunity and be able to have a crack at that.
Let's we'll get to more of that as you reveal your regenerative journey, as is per the charter of the podcast, Nick. How far do you want to go back? I mean, how far do you want to go back to set the scene? Nick Mace, young buck, running around Walgett, doing, you know, what was the vibe? What was growing up out here like?
Well, it was pretty great. Like, funnily enough, a lot of the memories are like feeding sheep in a drought and scrub cutting and.
Fond memories or just memories?
Well, they were fond for us when we were kids, but now that I've experienced some of that myself, they seem to stick in your memory more than the good times, probably.
And it's a bit, isn't it funny that those memories, they might be fond, but I guess it's not having the appreciation of what was actually happening. Yeah,
exactly. So. But experienced that young, and then like as you sort of I went through boarding school and then did a year in the Northern Territory, and just developed the love for the land and had a bit of a stint in Sydney and got that out of my system, and then came home and started helping Dad, and we expanded our property a bit and got pretty heavily into the like farming and developing country and expanding that way. And then, like, probably when it started, the rain started to steady up a bit.
So less, the seasons were getting a bit drier.
Yeah, seasons were getting a bit drier. Like, all the decisions around the management decisions to do with were just getting a bit harder to make, because we were making them on not much moisture getting preserved by us potentially doing another spray round on minimal moisture preservation. Like, those things were hard, and then like feeding sheep versus selling them, or joining rams when you don't have much grass in front of you. All those things were just getting a bit harder, and just sort of slowly recognised that was happening, and felt like it was out of my it felt like it was out of your hands a bit, and then just started to wish there, like, look at other ways to reduce those risks, and that's how, in a long way, we came back around to this sort of regenerative way of farming. Seems to minimise all those scary things.
Before we go there, let's just get back. I'm just interested to know and sort of set the scene for our listeners as to, and viewers, when we finally get this stuff on the line. What was a day, you know, for your father, you know, who was managing it back then, you know, in your childhood, you're at boarding school, you know, what style of management or sort of what activities or enterprises you had? I mean, this was predominantly sheep country, wasn't it? Back in the day.
Like the Walgett area probably started off predominantly as big sheep properties, merinos, and over the years it's like it's open landscapes, like lent itself towards like broadacre farming, and a lot of properties have swung their enterprise mix probably more to that way, and like down the fences have come and up silos have gone, and changed the landscape to suit that the cropping programs. And with our farm, we've sort of tried to keep it as a mix. So we've got both options. We've got we do some cropping and have sheep and cattle, and spread the risk a bit that way with a bit of diverse enterprises.
Just again, the country up here, it's very flat. For those not familiar with wild, it's very flat. There's a fair bit of native timber. I guess there's some regrowth. This country, when it was sheep country, I guess was opened up somewhat. But then with cropping, there's a lot of clearing went on, and a lot of diesel burnt, and a lot of activity to sort of change to be able to crop this kind of landscape.
Yeah, well,
was it suitable for cropping? Would you say?
Well, it's beautiful soil, and when it rains, you don't need any fertilizer. That's changing a bit, because I think potentially people are pushing it a little bit beyond its capabilities. But yeah, it really lends itself to like those years when our rainfall, we don't get it every year, but when we do get it, the soil can hold moisture and can really lend itself to growing beautiful crops. So it's that's why people have seen the opportunities to develop it that way.
And I guess that we probably get to a bit later on, Nick, but that sort of that enterprise of cropping requires a whole different style of management, obviously, but in terms of risk profile and great. And we had a bit of a chat about this morning. Grazing is one thing, and cropping is a totally different kind of style of management, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking also in the context of how did your father do much cropping here?
Dad's he's done a fair bit of cropping on and off over the years. We always try to reduce risk as much as possible by minimal inputs as we could and keep the grazing option open in case doesn't make it to a grain crop, and those sort of keep those options open too. So all our cropping paddocks have still got water points and fences around them, so that you can swing a mob of livestock in there to utilise that option.
Are there many? Do you think many farmers up here who maybe mainly cropping? Is there much animal integration that goes on?
No, not really. There's most people sort of have their farming areas, and they predominantly keep them stock free. Did see over when it was dry through the drought that farming areas were being grazed then, but not typically. They don't integrate the livestock into their farming program.
Well, I guess they've got maybe, as you say, fences have come down, watering points aren't probably adequate. It's just probably a bit hard. And
there's not a whole heap of trees for them to shelter or sit under in the summers, and they were concerned about compaction. So
are you concerned about compaction?
I'm not so as.
That's not a loaded question, by the way.
No, we sort of we're not so worried about that.
So grazing. Were there cattle? I mean, this is, I guess you said, it was traditionally sort of sheep country, wasn't it? And then cattle found their way into the system.
Yeah. No, a lot of people have breeding enterprises. We did, and it was heartbreaking when we ended up destocking them sort of about halfway through the drought after they'd already been on agistment all over the state. We just sort of drew a line in the sand and said if it hadn't rained by then we'd unload them, and it was hard to do it. But now looking back, it sort of took a bit of a weight off our shoulders, and going forward, I probably think our area might lend itself more towards trading than breeding, because we don't need to have that emotional attachment to the cattle, and be able to let them sell them if we need to.
And So you're fourth generation farmer.
Yeah.
Here. In Walgett?
Yeah, in Walgett. My grandparents were here and my granddad got a soldier settlement block and expanded.
Where we are here?
Not where we are here, out towards Canberra on the west side of Walgett. And we've still got that. It's a beautiful sheep block out there. Fair bit of history really.
Does that we're jumping all over the place, Nick, as you probably can imagine, and I hopefully we're prepared for, because I didn't really give you much prep time, did I? Is that where was I going with that? Soldier settlement. Oh yeah, no, fourth generation. Is that kind of does that weigh heavily on you? Is it kind of something you're proud of? Like where does that sit? Because a lot of our listeners are not farmers, and a portion of those ones want to be farmers. And I guess the whole idea about being, they are potentially the first generation of farmers, in what they might want to be a long line of farming. What does it mean to you to be a fourth generation farmer?
Yeah,
does it mean anything?
Yeah, no, it's great because you can. You've got like history there. You can see what's worked in the past and what direction you want to continue on and there's a tree there's a tree house out at one of the wool sheds on our place that Dad built when he was a kid, and it's still like the limbs of the tree house are still up in the tree out there. It's so I can point that out to my kids and. Those sort of things are pretty. You don't get that unless you're fourth generation. And there's just stories all over the farm. Like you can pull up on the bank of a dam and be like, "Oh, I remember back in '93 when something happened over there." And it's special to have that that history there.
Is that because David Marsh says, for those who haven't heard of David, Google him. Actually, you probably won't find much on the Google. Oh, you might. He's not on social media much, but wonderful mentor of mine and a fellow brewer. And he often sort of says, and I interviewed him in season 1, so go back to season 1 if anyone who's listening, if you haven't heard David. Might have even been a 2-parter. He was saying that it's often it can be a liability.
Yeah, no, it could be. I heard you talk about that with David and how you mentioned that blokes that come in with a clean slate are more open-minded, and that is something that I've worked on to be open-minded and to not like just because we've been here and been doing it for a long time doesn't mean that the way we've been doing it's been right. So we can learn all the way through. If you're not learning, then I think if you're not open to be learning and trying new things, and it's not the best way to be.
Let's get let's get back on track. So went away to school. Did many kids around here go away to school? Boarding school? Most of the people from around here end up at a boarding school somewhere around the state. It seems to be the sort of rite of path. That was fun. And you get to meet people from all walks of life, like city kids, from kids from other parts of the country, and build that network of contacts that can serve you throughout your life. And being boarding school and then being from out here, I guess you were, as I did my time in boarding school as well, that was a very similar mindset, I guess from similar farming backgrounds, and it's pretty countrified, isn't it? We're talking about,
Yeah, luckily the boarding school I went to was a lot of city kids there too, so that I was a bit more. That was probably a good thing for me because I was a pretty country boy already, so getting that exposure to a lot of fellas that weren't really probably helped me.
It was a healthy thing.
Yeah, and the way they think's differently to the way country boys think, so. It makes for interesting conversation. Sometimes you have to hold your bite your tongue a bit and hold your thoughts.
But I think it's actually really good for them as well.
Yeah.
You know, because but plenty of city kids coming out to our farm, you know, so I reckon that's good in that way. But just for them to understand different way of life and even those conversations and jargon and you know, it's pretty healthy, I reckon.
No, yeah, like every school holidays, I'd try and get someone to come home, and they'd all want to
Walgett, where?
Yeah, they'd all have a great time and enjoy the drive out and the trip out here.
So let's do, how many hours is it out here to say Sydney?
Sydney's 650 odd Ks, so you used to be able to do that a bit quicker than probably what you can now, but
going at $1.40 or
yeah, no, it's probably about 8 hours.
Yeah, it's fair slog.
Yeah.
It's a day. So schooling away, you know, family back here, Dad doing his thing. Then he left school.
Yeah. Did a stint in the Northern Territory for a year.
Lejeune.
That was amazing. That's like a place on the border of Northern Territory and Western Australia on the coast, and the barramundi fishing, the crocodiles, the buffalo even, and just great experience. We had horses back here, but didn't live on them like you do up there, and love that side of it. Probably nearly could still be up there, but sort of thought, oh well, it's time to do the next thing.
Why'd you come back?
I actually said to the boss, the head stockman up there, I'll be back again next year. And then when I got back here, I was like, oh, if I go back again, it'll probably be much the same as what it has been. You know, this year I'll go do uni, give uni a go. So then I went on to Arnott Uni for one semester and had probably a bit too much fun.
You and most of them.
Yeah, no, like I got through all the I ended up passing all the subjects, but I just sort of, it was just a bit too much partying for me. So I wanted to get out and do some work and earn some. I got a taste of earning a bit of money and having a bit of independence, and wanted to buy a car and all that sort of jazz, and ended up poking down to Sydney and reuniting with some of the old school mates, and ended up doing an apprenticeship down there as a carpenter, and as an excuse to stop down there for a little bit longer, and and then finished that, and then made my way back out to Walgett.
Was Rod sort of putting the pressure on to come home, help, you know, do stuff out here?
No, he didn't need to put any pressure on. It was funny when I was doing the building apprenticeship, and I was out here on weekends and bits and pieces of the time. I always used to feel like the work like you're on holidays when you're out here, even though we were working. And I was like, oh, pretty good, isn't it, to feel like you're on holidays when you're actually working? And just being your own boss, you just can't beat it. So
and you moved back out. What was the? You went from Sydney to back here. Was that Dad was saying it's time, or what was the?
No. My sister we'd had a car accident and a tragedy in the family, and I was already thinking along those lines anyway, and that was the trigger point to come back and help Mum and Dad, you know, through a pretty sad time, and give it a bit of a crack and make sure I liked it as well. So that was the instigator to the trigger to come home and put some roots back in. And
when you got back home, did you sort of did you chime in to, you know, what you'd always done, what Rod had been doing, what the family had been doing, or did you come back with sort of any different kind of paradigms about stuff?
No, not at that stage. I came back and Dad had sort of had it set up so that he could primarily run it by himself, and so I thought I'll come back and I'll help him a bit when he wants a hand, and I might do a bit of chippy work still. And I did that. I did do that for a little while, but then I found myself feeling like I was falling short as both a chippy and as leaving Dad short of staff all the time. And I was like, well, I just want to help Dad like that. That's what I enjoyed doing more. So I ended up, giving away the chippy stuff for the time being and just working on the farm more. And around that same time, opportunity came to expand a bit. And with that expansion, there was another house, so I could move out of living with Mum and Dad. And
was that here? Was that you're living with them here? Or
I was living with them in the Wilga Park house. And then,
as a 20, what were you being then? Early 20s.
Yeah. It's way back now.
So
anyway,
you were playing rugby.
Playing rugby.
For the Walgett Rams, not the Burke Rams or the what's the other Rams?
Canamble Rams.
There's three lots of rugby teams around here called the Rams. It's a class, which, as we said last night, is a reflection of how many sheep are around here.
Yeah, probably makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah.
So okay, so that's always pretty challenging, isn't it? Living with mum and dad when you're at that age and farming. And was there any sort of were there challenges with that, or with any sort of any tipping points or tension events that sort of got you thinking differently, or you and Rod just went out there and did the job?
Dad and I just seemed to pretty mesh pretty well and work along really well together. The turning point really probably was for me was being a couple of years into to managing this new place, and the rain had turned off a bit. I'd just gotten married and we'd started a family, and I got diagnosed with cancer, and
age
about 30. And that was a bit of a shock, because even though I sort of I thought I was you think you're bulletproof anyway, but I actually thought I was doing a bit of exercise, eating reasonably. I ate my vegetables and ate a bit of fruit, and so that I went through and had an operation and did the chemo and got myself in remission. And it was around then that I was like, bugger me, how did that happen? Like, started questioning the why, and went down a bit of a rabbit warren of like health and nutrition and trying to work it out as to what might have been a trigger point or whatnot. And I did I enrolled and didn't put myself through a integrative nutrition course, and it's so you just learn that it's so holistic. Like it's not just food, it's like the environment you're in, the sleep, the water, the mental side of it, the gratitude and all that, and and as well with on the food, it just did a full circle back to how it's grown. And then I thought, oh, hang on, I actually have a bit of a impact on. I could have a bit of an impact on how it's grown and or produced, and that was when I started to discover like this different way of farming with regenerative farming, and kind of got reignited with a bit of a new direction and excitement about it all.
Before we get to there, what was the integrative nutrition certificate? Who was that through? Because we'll put it in the show notes. It's called the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. Oh, okay.
They do like this online 12-month integrative nutrition training course, and it covers like all that sort of stuff, like nutrition, mindset. There's about 20 modules that you work through, and it was life-changing.
And you are a big fan of Cindy O'Meara as well, I believe. You're a bit of a fanboy.
Yeah.
So much so, tell us, you told me this, how much, well, maybe you shouldn't tell us.
We recently got a new pup the snakes had wiped out our last batch of dogs, and we had a mourning time for 6 months or so, and then we thought, right, well, let's get another puppy, try again, and we got her about the same time as I'd heard you talk to Cindy O'Meara, and we were thinking of brainstorming names, and the kids must have heard me banging on about how good she was, and so the little girl's name's Cindy.
That's and Cindy, for you, don't be alarmed or offended. It's the cutest little brown, yummy, soft little thing, isn't it? It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's only a pup.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Just tearing everything apart still at the moment. I'm ready for her to grow out of that stage.
Which is pretty much what Cindy does.
Yeah.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
We might add a little bit to the end of this show separately, but Cindy we interviewed her. I interviewed her in season 3. She is fantastic. Google Changing Habits. She's fantastic. Cindy O'Meara. We're sort of doing a bit of work with her, and we can probably tell you a bit more about that later in the show. But she's a real force, and we're really, really stoked to be potentially working with Cindy and just supporting what she's done, what she's doing.
Yeah.
Just in the essentially integrative health space, food, where it's from. She's farming herself now. She's got a family on board, and she's just a force.
Yeah.
You have to get her out here, mate.
She's
Cindy,
welcome.
you'll have to meet the other Cindy.
Yeah.
Now another question there for you, I think. That's a pretty serious turning point.
Yeah, and that was, so that, in hindsight though, I'm almost glad that it happened, because it was just like the kind of wake up call that sort of made me become a bit more present with what we were doing and what impacts that have on us and humans and the environment, and even the people around us and the way we bring up our kids. So I just feel like the swing that we've made is just a better way.
So what does that look like? Let's go down there. Like what is I turned up here last night, met Alex, kids. I mean the energy and there was something pretty cool going on. Yeah,
thanks, Charlie. Yeah, well, it's very holistic. Like it's not just on the farm. It's in the house, in the garden, and through the way you live your life. The changes that we've sort of been making.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the inside, because I think that's not that it's more or less important, but it's a great distinction you've just made, that it's not just about going, I'm going to do things differently in the paddock, for my cattle or my sheep or my plants or my soil, but it's that sort of if to do that outside and not and still be drinking Coke inside. Yeah,
that's right. And like I think you just got to get a strong why, and then it translates through everything then.
Tell us more about the why.
Well,
why, apart from a pretty serious health scare.
Yeah, well, we feel that if the reason that you're doing it all sits well with you, then we're likely to do a better job of it and continue it on, and hopefully it'll work, and just implanting it into our kids as well, so that they say that by the time they're 5, most of their implanting's already done. So with our eldest daughter's 8, so she's already implanted. So we're working on the bottom 3 at the moment, trying to help them, hopefully have the right type of upbringing, and so that they can work out what, as they get older, they can, without us telling them what to do, they sort of instinctively know what is the right choice to make in certain situations.
What are some of those situations? Like, how have you been doing that? What are some of the I call them strategies or tactics or practices that sort of you're comfortable doing and seem to have a...
Yeah, it's tough. It's like, it's funny. We were sitting at the Corinda pub one afternoon there, and I could see all the kids playing over in the park across the road, and we don't drink much soft drink, and Stella, I could see her over there, and all the kids were passing a can of fizzy around, and I was watching her, and I thought, oh, this will be interesting. Anyway, she had a mouthful and almost gagged because she'd never had it before, and spat it out, and I didn't say anything to her for a couple of days, and then I said, oh, I saw you had a bit of a go of that fizzy the other day, Stella, and she was like, oh, it was disgusting, Dad. It never went up my nose, and I don't know. That was a bit of a I was just thinking, oh, that's, we're doing all right if for her to be thinking that, and for it to, her taste buds aren't, they don't like that strong sugar, and so that's, I guess, that's just an example of sort of one of the things that, and we've got our own garden here, like veggie patch, and we lift the hay up and there's worms in there, and we've got one of those Johnson Sioux bioreactors, and watching it break, like the wood chips break down into soil, and I'm learning as well, but I'm trying to explain to the kids what's going on and why and why we're doing it, and so that just sort of helps them, I think, along the way with just a holistic kind of view of life and food and why we do things.
And what about tell us about before we get back to the practices outside, is there anything between sort of getting home, major health scare, looking to do things differently? Was there anything between that and sort of implementation in the paddock? Were there sort of any courses you did, or apart from the nutrition certificate, was there sort of any? I'll put this question to you. What hurdles were you finding at that point when internally you were breaking paradigms? Yeah,
there was definitely like a couple of years where I was starting to become open to like this way of thinking, and listening to your podcast, reading a few books, and just I was like agreeing with, like in my head I'm going, oh yeah, that resonates, I like the sound of that, but we were still spraying, we were still tilling, we were still set stocking, and we just took a bit longer to be able to swing across and start trying to implement change in those practice, in the way we were managing the land. And we sort of did it progressively, like dropped out the fungicide, insecticides, tried to keep more ground cover, even though in the industrial farming you lose a bit of moisture, but I was trying to preserve ground cover to hold it together and start improving the soil by doing that. And it was a slow transition, and we're still not all the way there, and like learning too, like every year is different with the way the season goes, so it's not like a set, we haven't worked out a set way that it just works, so you have to evolve it as every year goes, and try and through your knowledge and network of people work out the best like course of action to suit the season and what's going on.
And what did Dad think about all that?
No, to Dad's credit, he's been supportive. He'll often make a comment like, oh, but we just won't make any money out of that, so I'm desperate to try and prove him wrong on that, because of course we want to try and make it economic and viable, and I think that there's a way that you can have both, like win in both respects.
And were you making the decisions then, or were you sharing the decision making, or how did you sort of approach when you turned up? Maybe you'd read a book or you'd been to a course or something, and were you just going, oh, what's Dad going to think of it if I turn up?
I think he's probably sick of...
Did you have a few beers with him and hit him up?
Yeah, he's probably sick of being sent books and sent things that he should read or listen to. But he's always been pretty open-minded, and we discuss like what we're thinking of doing, and then often he'll be like, "Oh, why don't we just do that as a bit of a trial, like a smaller area trial?" And always struggle a bit with that because I just want to go the whole hog. But no, there were a few frustrating conversations, but we sort of worked through them, and now we've done a bit of succession planning, and he's still there to help me, but the more of the decisions are all on me now. So, I'm having a bit of a. Luckily, I've still got him to help me physically do the work and sound it out, bounce a few ideas off him. But up to me to give it a crack at what we want to implement.
Do you think your health scare helped him understand your motivation, or sort of, I don't know, how do you think that? I mean, obviously, being the father of a son that has cancer, that's pretty heavy in itself, you know.
Yeah, I think definitely. Like, he can sort of see where my motivations have come from, and my mum's really she's into she sort of loves. She reads a lot, and I send her all the books that I get, and get her to listen to the podcast too that resonate with me, and she helps sort of bridge that gap from the old paradigms that we have to trying these new things.
Let's stay inside for a minute in the family, because I guess that's where a lot of these things sort of, you know, the motivation. Alex is doing some pretty cool things, isn't she? And I've got to say, Alex is here in Walgett. I know she's from out sort of near Tottenham anyway, so it's not as though it's all foreign to her. But, you know, with your 4 kids, like, I think that's just incredible. You know?
Yeah, she's
real credit.
She's amazing.
Now is the time to pump up her tyres.
Yeah, good.
To the world.
No,
don't hold back, Nick.
We're very proud of Alex. Like, she's a beautiful person, and she's when we had Stella, she was just one day we were in the truck driving somewhere. She'd come along. I talked her into coming for an outing, and she was just like, "Oh, I just don't want this to be it." And I was like, "What do you mean this to be it?" And she said, "Oh, just being a mum." And I was like, "Oh, but you're not just a mum. That's really special." And she's like, "No, I just don't know what I want to do. I just don't want this to be it." I said, "Okay." And anyway, she ended up doing a law degree over the next 8 years. So she finished the law degree.
Mate, don't be having an argument with her, okay?
No.
Avoid that.
So she utilised her mothering time pretty well by sneaking in a law degree, and now she's finished that, and she is all the way along too, like with what was going on with me with my health scare and transition through kind of like doing my studies. She's got into she's quite passionate about her health and like self-development type stuff, and she's created an online business and a Facebook group of sort of like-minded girls, and girls only at this stage apparently. But
you could put together a men's version.
Yeah, true. Compliment it. Yeah.
Not in competition.
No, and
complimentary.
Yeah, I know.
So tell me about that. Tell me about her, because she mentioned it last night, or maybe it was this morning. And tell us. I mean, I'd love to give it a plug because it's, you know, that's just a wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah, no, I just reckon she's doing some cool stuff, and she's.
What's it called? What's the sort of?
The Rural Women's Collective,
mm-hmm.
And she's just interviewing all these interesting people that resonate with her, and for women to and men hopefully at some stage to like she's done some health coaches, she's done naturopaths, kinesiologists, the one to do with space, what are they, the astrology type?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah.
I always get astrology and astronomy mixed up.
Yeah, me too.
Astronomy I think is the stars and the sort of the more science, but the astrology I think is more of the constellations and that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I stand. Look, I may need correction.
Yeah, no, and I'm only hearing dribs and drabs of I haven't been allowed to join the women's group yet, but they just sound so interesting what they're talking about, and just empowering like girls to they don't have to do the 9 to 5 grind in a job that they might not like. There's always other opportunities out there, and being the best version of themselves is gonna help the family and gonna help them for themselves.
We'll put a link to that in the show notes, and I guess as long as you're a woman, you should be able to get. Men, do not try and falsify your identification. Sneak in there. I'm sure Nick's already tried to do that. So that's awesome. That's a wonderful thing, because as I've said before, I think the women of the world and those in the agricultural space, they're actually, in my view, are going to be leading us out of whatever we're finding ourselves in.
And the little things about that she probably didn't realise when she started it was just the networking of like-minded type people that has brought, and it's just really rewarding for her to be having conversations with all these people that are resonating with like the things that she's interested in and loving what she's putting out there. So yeah, I think it's been great on that side as well.
While we're inside, anything else you want to mention about life, family, habits? Any tips for dads who have small children in terms of the paradigms that you probably broke a few and a sort of being a parent with a different outlook and a different approach?
Yeah, I just think probably one of the main ones is like it all goes so quickly. So you you just I just try and be make a conscious effort of being quite present with different moments at different times to really listen to some of the answers of your kids and inquire to how their day was or why they ask them why, and listen to the answer and engage with them more. And yeah, because they'll be adults themselves before we know it.
We have a favourite game we play most nights. I shouldn't say most nights actually. That's not quite right. It's when we actually are sitting and being present, which is not every night, because sometimes with children of different ages, some need a feed early and then late, and then. But the point is that and Lila, my 11-year-old, she's beautiful. She, especially if we've got friends there, she'll sneak up and she'll jab me and say, it's time. And the question is, what was your favourite part of today?
Yeah, we try and do that too. What are you most grateful for the day? And it takes a bit of them when they're young. It takes a bit of focus and effort for them to come out with it, but it's just a nice way to make them think, and not always they're just wanting to surge ahead onto the next thing, but it's a nice thing to reflect on what was something special that happened today. Great
time for reflection for those kids. Any other indoor tips?
Charlie, there's hundreds of them, but
write a book, mate.
No, it's nothing specific.
Maybe if you're a woman, jump on the Rural Women's Collective, and I'm sure Alex will be sharing a few of those and fascinating stuff. And I reckon you're right. You mentioned last night she should start a podcast. I reckon she should too.
Yeah. I think it'll be good. And then it's easier if you're driving or jogging or whatever. You could plug in and catch up on whoever she's been chatting with.
And listen in, because who knows, Nick could be starting the rural men's collective in parallel. No pressure, mate. Okay, let's step outside. Let's step outside the kitchen door into the paddock. Tell me what is happening, not in your mind, in your head, in your decision making, in the paradigms that you step into that paddock with. What's different now to what it was when you got back home after your time at the June, and you were, Rod and you were doing your stuff. What are some of the distinctions now, in terms of sort of the why, and the thinking?
Yeah. Maybe one would be that like there's a stereotypical view of what success looks like, and maybe that's more acres, bigger tractors, wider gear, more livestock. And for me, I've sort of pushed towards that, had a good go at that, and now just realising that trying to just do a better job on what I don't think we're efficiently running what we already have, and we could probably try and do a better job on what like a bit smaller area and be more efficient and have a healthier landscape as well through some management tweaks.
To what does success? What does success look like? Here's one. What was success? What does success used to look like, and what does it look like now? Your KPIs or your benchmarks or your that was a successful year or crop or whatever.
Yeah. Well, success used to probably look like a really big crop and a huge mob of like livestock on a big property. But then sometimes, now for me now, I'm not so concerned about the scale of it all, but just trying to do better with a smaller, to improve the country as well. So instead of maybe growing grain and meat, we're growing grass primarily, and with that should come the grain and meat as well will come secondary to the grass.
And expand on that a bit, like what we're looking at Wilbur Park. What are some of those telltale signs that perhaps the younger Nick might have gone, oh my God, what were you
Yeah.
What are you thinking in that bag?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, we were driving around this morning and we've got like on one of our best paddocks, it's like got a really strong stand of like galvanised burr.
A good crop.
Yeah, and sort of like, looking at, you could say that that's just been the season this year, that's why it's like that. But maybe that we've like stocked it a little bit too hard over the years, and they've ate all the desirable stuff, and now primarily the only thing growing is this gal burr. So just like thinking a bit like that and trying to work out the best way to twist that back to getting the desirables back and the preannuals growing again, and improve that area, just focusing on like the smaller areas and rather than as a whole a bit. Yeah, so might roll the crimp roller over that and keep it destocked for a while and try and let a bit more light in and feed some microbes in the soil and get it cracking again.
So what would you have done before, you think?
I think I might have took the dozer in there with a stick rake and raked it all away and burnt it. Whereas maybe it can work for us too. Like maybe we can crimp roll it in and keep it as a blanket on the ground and protect the young growth that's trying to come up underneath it.
Because we saw that, didn't we, this morning? We saw that there's stuff happening underneath where there's a little bit of sunshine getting in, and I don't know what it was. was sort of not much grass in those areas.
No, and there's probably a whole colony of bugs and beetles and worms and that are all, you know, doing their thing to try and contribute to get it back to how nature would have had it.
And there's probably, you said it was buffalo and Mitchell grass in there.
Yeah,
it used to be.
That's why it was our best paddock, and I think it still will be. The seed will still be there. We've just got to create the right environment for it to come again.
And as we were saying, like you've got your crimp roller, which is very impressive, I have to say. And you know, doing a few test strips and things might be interesting to see, you know, what actually happens there.
Yeah. We're sort of even thinking of doing a bit of a test strip with it, and then maybe pull the old dozer out and rake up a little area and just compare what doing it one way to another, how it will respond to both bits of treatment.
Yeah, a little experiment there.
Yeah.
You're a scientist, mate. But I think there's room for that, isn't there? Like it gets back to, I mean, you were mentioning the other day you're a bit of a cold turkey kind of guy, which I am too. But there's a lot to be said for, you know, especially when you've got other family members involved. You know, that different generations to sort of go, hey, and Rod's, you know, he's already said, oh, maybe you can do a bit of this and a bit of that to experiment. So that's kind of a sensible approach. Yeah, and you hedge your bets, and you can see how it's worked one way and how it's working the other way. Can you let us know what happens?
Yeah, yep. No.
Take photos.
Yeah. No, for sure, Charlie.
Does so tell me, so grazing, and I think that's fantastic, and the fact that you're having those thoughts and you're questioning yourself, I guess, in previous management, which is all fine. I mean, you know, tell us about the cropping, what we saw this morning of the cropping, and again, you know, what would the younger Nick be saying to the older Nick now, if that younger Nick was just to appear in that crop over the road? What would he say to you? And what would you say back? Have a conversation with yourself.
Yeah, I do a bit. I look out there now and I'm like, oh dear, that's a bit dirty and messy. But so that's the not much younger Nick. I have a bit of a mental tug of war every time I go out there, because I'm so used to how it should, or how I've been brought, like kind of how most people farm, and how the industrial kind of paradigm there of having it clean, no weeds. And I actually had to, as a tool to make myself accountable to give this a red hot crack, I have got our place in transition to organic, and to make ourselves accountable to not using these chemicals anymore, and giving it a really good go. Like we've sort of invested in the tools, farming tools to be able to have a go at doing it that way. And so when I look out there now, I can see tillage radish and just native like plant and weed diversity in amongst the crop, and I'm like, oh, how's this going to pan out? So it's a bit unknown, but just like it was off the back of that dry, like the drought. We hadn't done any spraying on that country for anyway, so it was the perfect opportunity to give it a crack, like and see how we go going forward.
So what would you say to the younger Nick? What's your justification?
Oh, look, I'd just a little checklist of, you know, like I'd be saying, oh look, you know, we want to try and improve the carbon levels and organic material in the soil, and the best way to do that is to have plant life in the soil all the time. So in the fallow times, instead of having it bare fallow, we'll be trying to have either native ground cover, or maybe like a millet or a mixed species type crop, to keep the diversity cranking, and the microbes feeding the microbes with root extradites, and and just keeping the carbon cycle building and going, and even down to like little things like, well, we noticed it this morning out there that, you know, like a dew overnight can, the combination of them over a year can equate to, you know, millimetres of rain that you don't have to receive, but you still get the benefit from them. That's probably what what I'm saying to myself when I look out there and just like probably saying, like it's hard to account for the benefit of what that is in monetary terms, but over time, hopefully, we can do more with less because the soil will be in a better state.
And when young Nick says, "But yeah, how are you going to harvest that?" What are you going to say?
I'm going to say, "Oh, lucky we got our own header." And
I was trying to convince you to sell it last night, but actually, you put up a very, very good and very swift counter, which made perfect sense. So that's great. Yeah,
and we might have to seed grade it or tweak a few things on the settings on the header to try and blow a few of the foreigners out. But at least what grain we do have, we know is like of a higher value and nutrient quality than what it would have otherwise been.
It was surprisingly clean, really. I mean, when we spoke on the phone, a good few weeks ago, a month or so ago now, 2 months maybe, and you were sort of a bit worried about what was going to come up. I guess you'd not long sown it and you really couldn't see, but I was really surprised that the main thing was mustard.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a couple of other things there, maybe a few grass, cereal, foreigners that you probably don't want, but it was actually surprisingly clean. It wasn't like the diverse, crazy, oh my God, how am I going to sort all this out kind of situation.
Yeah, and hopefully, like that's all those plants are like sort of maturing ahead of the wheat too. So hopefully, they sort of naturally shell out a little bit and like done and dusted primarily at harvest time.
And you mentioned something interesting this morning about your mate over the fellow you listened to in WA. His name escapes me. You'd remind me, and what he was saying about the health of soil and how that affects the liquid content of plants. Yeah,
Brent Burns. I've spoken to him a few times, and he just casually
Burnsy,
yeah. He mentioned I think it was the pectin inside the plant instead of it being primarily like the liquid nutrients that a plant has in it can be primarily like fluid. So when we get frosts in winter, it damages the plant and hurts it. But when they're growing in a healthier sort of soil and environment, and you can get the balance right, it's pectin or something, and it doesn't necessarily do that, and it can tolerate, it produces something that repels bugs, and it doesn't get damaged from frosts and adverse sort of events.
What's something just thinking about that? What might be interesting? Have you got a bricks machine? Bricks?
Yeah, I do.
You do.
Yeah.
What you could do is like go out in the afternoons when the bricks should be reasonably high, not high because you want it to be high to prove anything, but more that's an optimum time to do it after the sun's been on it for a while, and measure your wheat.
Yeah.
And then if there's anyone nearby that you could test them
and compare.
You can just compare. I mean, obviously, look, the soil I guess would be the same in terms of its parental rock, lots of different management. It might be interesting to see, to compare that, different management obviously over the fence.
And probably I need to even in like after I've been doing it for a little bit longer too, just to build a bit more health and be able to get a representative. Like I should log it and record those things as well to see it.
Well, it's a measure of health profile over time. It could be potentially anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, there are obviously other variables in there. What you're testing, whether it's wheat or barley or oats or pasture, but just in terms of here I am suggesting it, and I'm not very good at that myself. So that's what I need to do. Jim and Brock, that's what we need to start doing very well. Any other sort of things you'd be sort of countering your younger self with in the paddock? Is it it could be not in the cropping paddock. Could it be in the shed? Could it be, on the road? Is there anything we were talking about kangaroos this morning.
Yeah, well, like we'd be loving to put up we've been running the idea of putting up an exclusion fence around the property to try and be able to manage them a little, because when we in the past when we've tried to rest a paddock, we've found that they come in and don't let you rest it, or like when other neighbours and farmers has sort of overgrazed their paddocks and you're trying to rest yours, you get all their roos coming onto our place. Yeah, and we've sort of been looking at that as an option, and and then we just recently became aware that emus are one of the best ways to spread native grass seeds about, and maybe we'd have to fence them in if we did do it. Ironically.
Classic.
Yeah.
So what have you changed your thoughts on around that?
Yeah, just and obviously because it's such a big expense to go ahead and exclusionary fence.
So to just tell me what an exclusion fence basically is, in layman's terms, so they understand what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's you can make them as big or as little as high as you like, but they're like a ring lock fence that has an apron on it to prevent like the kangaroos can dig under and pigs can dig under, so it's got this apron that goes out to prevent that from happening, and they can be at waist height, shoulder height, head height. You can, and they're a big investment, but they're a powerful tool to exclude undesirable wildlife, I suppose.
You mentioned this morning how much it would cost to do your place.
Yeah, I think it's like if you do it full contract, I think it's probably $12,000 a K. So it's if your boundary's 80 Ks, it's a bit of doing. Yeah.
And what are your thoughts on it now? If is that changed?
Yeah, well, you just really got to convince yourself that and work out how long it'd take to get the value back from doing it, and potentially there's other avenues that are out there that we might try before we go down that line.
Do you want to tell everyone about that? Come on, mate. You've been at the biodynamics course.
Yeah.
People are up for the challenge.
No, well, we're just it's just like being open-minded with subtle energy type stuff, and maybe we try a bit of peppering and see if we can encourage them that the grass isn't actually greener on our side of the fence, and so I guess that would involve getting a few, coming across a couple of roadkill roos or whatever, and burning them into ash and then spreading their ash about, and doing it with an intent that, spreading it with an intent that it will prevent them coming on, and trialing that to see if that might make a difference.
I reckon give it a shot.
Yeah, I'll definitely do a warm-up run with mice.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, for anyone who, I'm not sure if we put that in the show notes or not, and but certainly if you want to know more about peppering, come to one of our 2-day biodynamic workshops, which might be a promo somewhere in this top and tailing of this episode. But certainly, Nick's been to it. Was it end of last year?
About the middle of last year. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
And you can learn about peppering, which is essentially, as Nick said, burning an animal. You can do plants as well.
Yeah. No,
on a full moon, spread the ash.
Yeah. No, we did the last time I was in the boom spray, we put out a brew of I sprayed some kelp, active start, and boron across the paddock, and I put in some potent biodynamic preparations, and it was it was nice. You could almost wanted to have the windows down and the door open and just let it all flow through the cab as well.
What would you have done that 8 years ago?
No, no.
I guess that's it's worth mentioning. That's quite the difference, isn't it, in terms of how comfortable you are with the materials you're handling?
Yeah. No, and in the past you sort of feel like you want to, you better shut all the windows of the house, Alex. We've got a bit of a nasty brew going over here, and now it's like you hope the wind's blowing that way to get the garden a bit as well.
That's hilariously good. Yeah. But I guess, just on that though, and this is not copping out on industrial farming. Well, it is in a way, but it's not. It's indirectly. But I know plenty, and I used to do the same. Spraying, nasty chemicals, because often on a farm, there's cropping paddocks near the house or areas that need some so-called treatment. But it's an interesting thing that I never really thought much about it until I kind of had to, or was it dawned on me that there's a family living in that home, and it's my children, and there is a interaction, whether we like it or not, between the paddock and the house and the garden and that sort of thing. It's not as though we can avoid that. Literally, quite physically, it's a physical thing. It's like you're trying to live in a farm that is not here now, but certainly what we used to do in an area that you probably don't really want kids to be living.
Yeah, and that was like we were trying to eat prior to going more the way we've gone. We were trying to eat like organically and clean, and then I'd be going out and jumping, contradicting what we're doing in the house out in the paddock, and that was just a little mental tug of war that was difficult to sit with.
How did you manage that? What
Well, I still have times where you have to do bits and pieces. Like if I do any contracting work, then that normally involves doing that. Going back to the old way. But at least on our farm, I can put a stop to it.
Mm. No longer something you have to battle with.
Yeah, and it just aligns with our values now, and it feels good to be doing that.
How did you how did you work out your values? Like that's a word that you and I, in sort of, I guess, regenerative farming kind of spaces, you hear a lot about, but I certainly didn't even know what the word meant, apart from dollar value of something back in the day. But how did you, get to understand and appreciate your values as an individual and family and so on?
Yeah, that is tough, because you have to, really dig deep within yourself to work out what they are, and you have to, forget about the people pleasing and those sort of things, and you have to just sit down and maybe do a mind map or look at a heap of descriptive words on a page and circle the ones that jump out at you of your values and then expand from that. It doesn't happen overnight working them out. You have to, I think sometimes you get these life experiences that come along the way that help you work them out too. And you got to be present when they happen to use them.
Use them as a learning.
Yeah.
People pleasing. That you mentioned that just there before. Where does that sort of fit into it? Do you think?
Well, it's very easy just to do things and say things that society might see as the norm or expect you to be doing, and you need to work out whether they are what you mean or what you want. So it not necessarily doing what your neighbour does or what the agronomist recommends, like questioning it and working it out for yourself, whether that's what the line you want to take.
Takes a bit of courage sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, you can have some hard. Why didn't you do that? Yeah, hard conversations.
Are you the district widow? Would you say?
Yeah, up there, I'd reckon. I don't know. I've tried to be pretty quiet about what we're up to, because I don't need the judgment. But yeah, it over time it'll probably bit of muttering and under the breath. It's lucky I don't play footy anymore, or there might be a few comments getting around.
Just on football, and on that one, it's interesting. Some of the guys that I've worked with at Hannah Minnow on our farm, played footy over the years, and one of the fellas said a couple of years ago that it'd be interesting, that there's always sort of questions and jibes and things about the crazy stuff we're doing at Hannah Minnow there from some of the rugby players, which is understandable. I would have done the same thing too back in the day. And then it's interesting because then they have go to the pub after training or on a Saturday night and get a few beers into them, and they're going, hey mate, tell me a bit about that. Yeah. Sort of like,
no, there's a lot of curiosity there, and it, a bit like questions, and it's and that people are interested in what's going on. They just want to probably see how you might go, or learn from your mistakes or your successes, and then you never know, maybe they'll show some more interest into it.
And often it's not the neighbours either, because there's some sort of, I don't know what that is, around comparisons, or not that you or most people sort of go out to deliberately compare, but I think from a neighbour's point of view, I can kind of understand, that often they're not the ones that get that curious. I don't know, it's often the people on the other side of town that's kind of, they're far enough away physically, geographically and mentally that they can sort of go, it's sort of like from a safe distance, they can sort of ask those questions.
Yeah, no, true. Like, because I guess everyone's trying to justify the decisions that they make, so that within their life and their farm, so that they're going to protect their choice by being pretty strong in what they've done. But you're dead right. Like, a bit of geographical distance, makes it more approachable.
We looked at some reasonably big paddocks out there this morning, Nick, on the grazing on this side of the road. Tell me what it is, west and east, isn't it? Have I got that wrong? Yeah. On this western side of the road. What are you thinking out there? Because again, there's probably some listeners who reasonably broad acre grazing, large scale grazing. What would you like to do out there, from a grazing point of view?
Yeah, I think probably the most economic and practical way at the moment will be to might try and source an old milk tanker or something, and hook up a portable trough behind that, so that I don't have to run new water everywhere. And then try and control graze it with some electric fencing, and be able to get the livestock to graze parts of the paddock that they don't normally go to because it's too far from water, and hold them there for a period of time to try and get some like animal impact from them grazing there as well as, and hopefully that might prompt some more growth and more diversity and benefit.
What do you think? Yeah, what would you be looking for? What would be, again, a sort of a sign of success if you've got your feeling a little better about your grazing out there? What would be a good thing, good outcome? Yeah,
like our Walgett areas, we've got a lot of hard roly-poly, and it tends to almost be a monocrop sometimes, and I'd like to, if we can sort of bash that down a bit with hooves, and then move them on and rest it and let it recover, and if we can get some Mitchell grass coming back again, and like all these native perennial grasses that, the more desirable ones that we've probably overgrazed out over time. That'd be kicking goals.
Talking about kicking goals, you attended a training course early this year? No, was it last year?
The RCS?
Yeah.
Yeah, September last year.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was great too. It had been on the hit list for a while, and I was just waiting for one to be like a more local one to be run, and went down to Dubbo and did the week school there. And
who took that one?
Matt Barton.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's a cracker. And that was a meeting even, and it's quite intensive. So you end up meeting. And the table we're on, you get to all know each other pretty well and have a few contacts there that are trying to sort of implement the same type things that you're interested in doing, and break down a few paradigms. And
grazing for profit.
Yeah.
Was it grazing for profit? Grazing and farming for profit? Is these?
Yeah, both.
Yeah.
For this area, because a lot of people have mixed operations. Yeah. It was a good school.
What was some of the what happened? Well, not every day, but like what was the sort of take us through sort of I don't know how the experience you had.
Yeah. So you go in and there's a series of modules you work through, and a lot of spreadsheets and stuff too as well that you actually put some of your own data in off your own farm and run a few numbers, and you get the opportunity, to have a look at other people's numbers doing that as well, and see, what might be working. And it actually, by the end of the week, you sort of feel like pretty privileged, because you're hearing quite a bit of private stuff about people's individual operations and what's working for them, or what they might like to do, or what family issues they might have been having on in their businesses. And so it's I'm continuing with their Next Steps program, so I've got a coach to help us to consolidate what we learnt in the school, and try and get better with all these tools that they sort of give you the access to use. And that, like, doing enterprise analysis and seeing what enterprises are working and what might not be, and hopefully we can cut off a bit of or recognise if there's a bit of low hanging fruit to tidy up.
Mm. And why did you do it? What was the impetus there?
It was just like another step in the road of going this direction. Like a lot of good recommendations. A couple of my close friends had done it and recommended it, and they'd even got their wives to do it, and so everyone's on the same page with the line of thought. And I think it's just a great bit of exposure that can help you. You don't have to take everything on board, but to be exposed to it and get the opportunity to see what it's about.
Well, for me, it was certainly one of the life-changing moments or courses that I did. 2004 might have been, to send me in a different direction. I was sort of already on that path, but it certainly was it was a big turning point, I have to say, and I can't recommend it any more highly. Anyone, especially on a larger scale. I often sort of suggest people on a smaller scale and sort of coastal, do an HM course with someone like a Brian Wahlberg, who's just amazing. So look him up, Inside Outside Management, and then which I haven't done. Brian, I need to do your course. But with the broader scale on the grazing and the larger operations, I sort of tend to...
Yeah, I'd second that, because definitely prior to doing the RCS, I would be often hearing myself say it in my head, oh, yeah, that's easy for like a little 100-acre block, but how do we do this on, a bigger scale? And then, after having done the school and seeing that, there are, like, it's been around for quite a while now too.
Yeah.
Like, and there are plenty of
30
people.
years, I think.
Yeah, there are plenty of people that are, you know, made it work and having success with implementing, you know, their strategies.
Talking about implementation, I'm just looking at the time. I've got to get myself to a bull sale soon. However, I want to ask you, what would you say to, you know, another version of you or someone else or anyone who's thinking about transitioning, you know, a farmer who's or a son or daughter or whatever that's sort of come home, or, you know, thinking about transitioning, you know, any sort of tips on what they could do, you know, think about, you know, any sort of paradigms that they might want to sort of consider.
Yeah, I think that you probably need to, again, back to that why thing. You need to probably, you know, learn as much as you can with an open mind and justify the implementation of what you're thinking about doing. Because if you haven't got that right in your head, then it's going to be hard for it to work and to implement it. Because it's very easy to go back to the sort of the other way, where the industrial type mindset. So once you've got, if you can justify it to yourself in your head that you think that makes sense and that might work, and I can see why that's the go, then it'll be easy. It'll be easier and you can sort of stand behind what you might want to do, and be confident that, you know, even if you don't get the exact results that you might be expecting, that you are going in the right direction.
I love the expression, I may not be correct, but I am never in any doubt.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, you know, you do the homework, you know, justify it to yourself, if that's the right word, and just go, you know what. And I guess there's a bit of courage and faith in there too, isn't there?
Yeah, and yeah, aligning it with what you enjoy. You got to like what you want to do. Yeah.
What do you like about it?
Yeah, like all of that, like just the, you know, well, you've got all your values and your why, and you're pushing, if you're pushing in that direction, and then you can start to see and you notice things that you wouldn't have noticed in the past, like you just pull a plant out and have a look at its roots, and you see that it, you know, there's a bit of fungi growing there, and you probably might not have done that in the past, and hopefully that, you know, your management's having a bit of an influence on why that's happening.
Yeah, there you go. What else do you notice? Like what did you go out in the morning? Like, what did you notice this morning that you probably wouldn't have?
Well, yeah, I love that over the cooler months that you get that dew, and there's no that's rain without it raining. I hadn't thought of that until recently, and yeah, you know, that's, you know, the plant's having a drink each night, and when we in over the summer months, if we're sort of keeping some plants alive on the farming side of things, then you're getting that benefit for 6 months of the year when you wouldn't get it at all. With sort of the old way of doing things. So yeah, I love noticing that, and even hearing the I just think, and when you've got like those ground covers and stuff, you've just got all these birds and hawks, and like, yeah, it's all going on.
Any what's the word? Not comments, or anything you'd like to say to a younger Nick? You know, like anything. You know, if you could have a chat, whisper in his ear. Anything you'd like to tell him?
Well, yeah, I guess I wonder if I didn't have my health scare, what it'd look like now, and so I often wonder about that, and Yeah, I don't know. It's because that's happened. It's like, you know, everything kind of happens for the right time at the right reason. So I'm sort of that, you know, I like that sitting with me. So if maybe if you're having, you know, a bad trot, then, you know, that you take that as an opportunity for you to learn from it and get stronger from it, because it doesn't always all go your own way. But, you know, you can either feel like you're hard done by, or you can take it as an opportunity to better yourself from it.
Mate, that's wonderful. How was that?
Yeah, I was a bit concerned about, a bit nervous and everything, but yeah, it has been pretty.
Grab that thing, grab your little map over there. Holy smoke. We've got a panther and a tiger out there.
Catfly.
For those who can't see, listeners, Nick's in preparation for this. You see it on the video there. As the cats tear each other apart. A bit of a mind map there of your regenerative journey. That's awesome. I think that's so. I mean, yes, prep for this, but you know, in terms of just sitting there and doing a bit of a brain dump. Yeah, was that useful? Useful exercise?
Yeah. Oh, well, it was just when you sort of said, "Oh, I'd like to interview Nick." I didn't want to come across as I wanted to come across as, you know, have a good chat about it, and I wanted to justify to myself that I have had a regenerative journey, and I just did a brain dump to put down on a piece of cardboard so I could see the path for myself, that even though I know it, but sometimes when you write things out like that, it sort of is pretty clear that there has been a lot of change and a lot's happened in the last 10 years.
And that's the reason I did ask you, because and you questioned that understandably, and I said, mate, you know, you've got a wonderful story to tell. I knew somewhat, you know, some bits of it, and it's been a real honour to sit here with you at Wilga Park and for you to share that with the world. And mate, thank you very much for the time.
Yeah, same to you, Charlie. Thank you. You like what you're putting out with your podcast it's been amazing for me, especially going through like transitioning. You know, you might be a bit doubtful sometimes, and then I just hear you talk to someone and I was like, nah, I'm on the right track. I just got to, you know, stick with it and, you know, keep at it. So, yeah, thank you for that too. And it's empowering. I'm sure it's impacting and empowering a lot of people.
I hope so, and I get that sense. We get really good feedback about it, which is really it's wonderful to hear. It certainly keeps us going. Not that we want to stop doing it, but it's just nice to get those little prompts on the way. Talking about prompts, we're gonna wrap this interview up, Nick, and then I've got some rapid fire questions I'm going to ask you as a separate thing. So for those who are our Patreon members, or you want to sign up to our Patreon platform at the kitchen table, I hope I've got that right, Reese, around, because we're just sort of getting that underway. Around the kitchen table or at the kitchen table. I should have really done my homework. But anyway, that's our new little platform. We're going to hit Nick up with a few rapid fire questions, which is you're the first victim. I haven't quite even got all the questions worked out. Well, I've got them worked out now, but they may not be the final list. But you're going to be the first one.
The guinea pig.
The guinea pig. So if anyone's interested to hear what Nick has to say about these kind of things, and the one I usually put at the back of the interview, which is, you know, I'm giving you some time to think about it. So a bit of a giveaway is, if you had a billboard on the side of the highway, what would you say? But don't tell me now, because you'll have to sign up to Patreon. 2, which will be on our website and all over the place, to find out what Nick would like to put on a billboard, plus a few other probing questions. Nick, let's wrap it up. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time, and can't wait for this one to hit the airwaves.
Yeah, cheers, Charlie. Thank you.